Now, before we get into this video, all of these true scary stories are all very diverse from each other. Like, we've got a gas station horror story, we've got an online dating horror story, and I'm just gonna stop right there so then I don't ruin the surprise. So hopefully, you'll find out for yourself. Watch till the end. Now let's begin. The graveyard shift. Everyone hates it but always has to do it. Tonight it was me. I sat there, feet propped up on the counter, watching empty pumps from the window. No one came through here usually, past about 12 o'clock at night. One of the reasons I liked working the night shift, it was always quiet. All I had to do was basically just sit there and watch over things. How hard could that be, right? Accompanied by endless snacks and free food. I was practically being paid to sit around and do nothing. So I went on my normal usual routine, sitting there listening to the top 10 countdowns on the radio, gorging down some junk food, and catering myself to all of the energy drinks. Usually by 1 o'clock, I would say, I would start to feel the sugar buzz. That's when I would bring out the green for a little bit of something extra, if you know what I mean. It was getting late and the energy drinks had drowned themselves in my liver a little too fast, so I went to relieve myself. There I was zipping myself up, and in that filthy bathroom, I swear, a dead body could be disposed there and no one would even notice. I looked into the mirror and could see bags underneath my eyes. After washing my hands with the brown water, I decided to use the lifter. So I pulled out this fresh batch and lit one up. Smoke filled the bathroom. I locked the bathroom up and vented it so the smoke would just leave through the window. That's when I saw a car pull up to one of the pumps. An old, worn-down Chevy, blacked out. So dark I couldn't even see through it, but I saw no one. I looked again outside through the windows, but there was the car, parked at pump number 6. I turned towards the camera and looked at the 4 screens that perimeter the gas station, but I saw nothing. No sign of anything. I walked outside, putting my hands in my pockets, and slowly edged toward the car. Step after step, slowly walking into the fluorescence. I walked towards the Chevy, and I felt a chill go down my spine. I could see these large scratch marks along the car, ragged and deep. I walked closer to the car and I peered into the driver's window, but could see nothing. Pitch black. There was something in the back seat though. I couldn't tell what, but something was definitely there. In the midst of all the darkness, then the bell rang from the inside of the gas station, nearly startling me. I let go of the stare and walked back into the store. I rounded the snacks, but no one was there. I called out to see if anyone was there, but no one. Instead, all that was left was the $6 on the counter. I walked over to the cash register, and no money had been taken out. I looked over at the window, and I saw the door to the Chevy was wide open now. I looked back over at the security cameras and see nothing. Another car drove up, and it was the police. Quite frankly, I was happy to see it. I stood at the counter as 2 police came into the store. They nodded as I did. "That'll be $35.70, I said to one of the officers. They could tell I was a little shaken up. You okay, pal?" I wanted to tell them about the car and the 6 random dollars, but I was afraid they'd think that I was lying, so I just nodded to the Chevy. It's been sitting there for like 35 minutes and hasn't moved. No plates, no owner. And then when I come back, I find this on the counter. I held up the $6. The officer looked at it, and one of them motioned back to look at the car. I watched as one of the officers surfaced towards the blackened car. "So, you work here all night alone?" the officer asked, and I nodded, trying to stay straight. Trying to remember I was still pretty high. I watched intensively as the officer walked around that car and shined a flashlight at the open door. He then turned away from the car and did a walk around the building. I still watched as his flashlight lagged in every camera. He finally came back in. I checked the car and the entire building, but nothing. Must be some kid or bum. I'd say stolen car, but whoever they are, they're gone now, the officer said. But in no way did it feel like any relief. It happens all the time. Listen, we'll report it and it'll be towed in the morning. I sighed. But I knew something was just off. The abandoned car, whatever was inside, the change on the counter, something was off. I tried to laugh with them. They just smirked. Well, before we go off our way, do you mind if I use the bathroom? The officer who just came in had asked. No, not at all. It's around the corner outside. I really hope that room was fully aired out by the time that officer would walk in there. So there I was once again with the same officer that had stayed in there with me. 5 minutes passed, 10, then 15. He sure is taking a while. I questioned as the officer gave me a look, then he turned to his shoulder to radio his partner. Officer Brown, this is Officer Keys, do you copy? There was a pause before he tried again. Officer Brown, this is Officer Keys, do you copy? No answer. I began to feel a little worried as Officer Keys looked over at me, and no response. The officer had mentioned for me to come with him and check out the bathroom. We both walked outside, me again with my hands in my jacket, and the officer with his gun in his hand, just in case. I can't say that this worrying was getting better by the second. The officer led the way. We made it all the way to the door. Officer Brown, this is Officer Keys, do you copy? We could hear the echo of the officer that went into the bathroom. It was his radio going off. Both preparing for what to expect, the officer mentioned for me to get back as he pried the door open. And what I saw brought me to my knees as I threw up. The officer just covered his mouth, then gagged. There was blood everywhere, on the walls, painting all of the tiles on the floor, with handprints and smeared blood stains. And in the middle of it all, the radio that belonged to Officer Brown. The Officer Keys guy that stayed with me quickly ran inside and picked it up, hustling me back towards the store. Jesus, what the hell could have happened to him? I started to worry and scream as Keys sat there. Needless to say, the entire gas station became an investigation, and nobody would tell me what was going on. Update on my story. Come to find out that the officer had been stabbed to death and then drugged. The man disappeared and was unidentified and is still missing to this day. A little after I decided that I was going to quit. Because what if that guy comes back? I don't want that. And just the thought of what happened in that bathroom scars me to this day. We're never going to get answers, but I would really love some. That's my story. This was extremely the most traumatizing experience I've ever had. I was in this Facebook group where people shared different kinds of stories, and mostly funny ones. I usually post comments in there using a dummy account, and most people did use dummy accounts as well. I had a fun conversation with this guy using a dummy account named Luffy, who claimed to be 21 years old. We exchanged messages on Facebook without adding each other. We both found out that we lived nearby each other, so we decided that we would meet up and have lunch in the mall near our school. I chose the place to meet where it was really crowded, since I had dress rehearsal for a play. He told me he would just wait for me in the burger stand near our school. The night before, we sent each other pictures. I was excited to meet him since he looked really attractive, smart, and funny. By 4 p.m., I stood beside that burger stand. A heavily tinted red car stopped at the street right in front of me. Then I received a text message from him asking me to get inside the red car. Since I've read a lot of these stories here on Let's Not Meet, I decided to go with my instinct, and I sent him a text saying I wouldn't get back in that car unless he goes out and shows himself. What happened next made me promise myself that I would never meet anybody on the internet again. It was a man, most likely in his 30s. When he got out of the car, he started to clutch me by my arm and kept tugging me. I screamed like I have never screamed before, making it noticeable since there was a lot of civilians there as well. The guy who watched over the burger stand came to us and asked what's wrong, clearly concerned. "She's my daughter. She's in big trouble. She ran away from home," were this creep's defense. I denied it every time, and the burger guy told him that he would alert the guards from our school. That's when Luffy let go of my arm, went inside his car, muttering to himself, and drove off fast. When the guards came, I told them everything, and I was never let out of school that day, without a guardian picking me up. Later on, I went on Facebook after this all happened to check if he was still online. The account had been deleted, and all of the messages too. So for the guy that named himself Luffy on Facebook, let's never meet again. You might not like what happens when you have a bullet in your head. At the beginning of October, my friend and I, who always went on break together, went to the elevator to go downstairs. Just as we turned the corner to the elevators, I saw someone get on and the door shut. I then pressed the button and the same elevator opened. We have 3. This means the elevator never went down. When the doors opened, there was no one on the elevator. When the door had closed, I saw 3 reflections in the door, even though there was only my friend and I in the elevator. The third reflection was distorted because of how the doors were made. This figure was at least 6 feet tall, had on beige pants and a blue shirt. Riding to work with my carpool buddy, we were talking about different subjects, and he asked me if I knew Marge from collections. I advised him that I would have to see her. It was a big place that I worked at. I asked him if he could describe her. His description is about 6 feet tall, always wore pants. He then goes on to tell me that she had passed away. Come to find out, she died in the elevator from a heart attack. I could not find out what she was wearing though, but I bet it was a blue shirt and beige pants. My husband had reached the elevator a little bit before me, pushing the button as I walked behind him. The elevator farthest away immediately opened for him, and he walked in, having it close immediately behind him. I thought it was strange, but I just shrugged it off and pushed the button again. At about that moment, for whatever reason, it seemed like time had slowed a little bit. And then the lights in the hallway became much brighter, almost like energy around me had slowed or sped up, as if like the energy or something had been interrupted. Afterwards, I explained it to my mother, as if someone takes the paperback books and fans the pages out with their thumbs. I looked up to see the elevator doors open, and a young woman, maybe a little bit older than me, with blonde hair, pulled back ponytail, wearing blue jeans and a pink pullover, entered the elevator. Not thinking anything was out of the ordinary, I walked in behind her to find out only my husband in the elevator waiting for me. I asked where the woman was that had just walked in there before me, and he looked at me like I was crazy. He kind of laughed and told me that there hadn't been anyone to walk into this elevator but me and him. I'm still not quite sure what happened this day. She wasn't wearing clothes from another time. She looked simply enough like another traveler just going to work or going home. Has this happened to anybody else? True story time. I was about 4 or 5 years old, and my parents had just separated. My mom was living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I had my own room, but I liked sleeping in her bed whenever I was staying over. Our 2 bedrooms were at the end of the hallway, directly across from each other. Our apartment was on the first floor, and I remember that in the middle of the summer, my mom had the window open in her room, and it was directly behind the headboard of the bed. Anyways, I woke up in the middle of the night and remember sitting up and seeing our cat. It was standing in the door frame of my mom's room. Her door was open, and you could practically see into my bedroom. It was strange because our cat was a huge snuggler and was typically always on the bed with us. As I was watching him, he walked into my room and meowed. I turned to face my mom and wake her up. In the 3 or 4 seconds it took for her to wake up and ask me what was wrong, I looked back in the doorframe, and there was a man standing by my door, making his way out of my bedroom. I still don't know how she managed to do it so quickly, but my mother proceeds to pick me up and literally throw me out of the screen window. Again, we were on the first floor, so it might have been maybe a 3-foot drop to the ground. She quickly followed me, and we were able to get out and start screaming for help to call 911. Somebody ended up calling 911 for us. The police came, but they didn't see any signs of a forced entry, only that our front door was unlocked, which led them to believe that this man had exited that way. But the strange thing was that my mom swore up and down that she locked that door that night, with the deadbolt and the chain. About a week later, she was cleaning the kitchen and she opened the door to the water heater closet and found a note with names and drawings, as well as a pair of gloves and some gum wrappers. The man had been in our house and hid until we were asleep. So I can go ahead and say, I definitely have nightmares from time to time. I know it was so long ago, but something about somebody being in your house that you don't know, that sits there and watches you over your sleep, just always gives me chills. This happened to my wife's grandmother about 15 years ago while we were still dating. Her husband had just passed away about a year previously, but she had been going down to the library and volunteering, exercise and socialization. This was in the winter, so her walk back was while it was getting dark. The library closed at 5, and then there was some extra stuff to do before everyone actually left. And on this particular night, she had turned down a ride home from another volunteer because, damn it, she needed to stay in shape. The house is about a mile away through some light wooded areas in South Texas. And as she was about halfway home, she notices someone behind her. He's walking in the same direction and gaining on her, which in itself isn't all that particular. She's old, thus not particularly fast, obviously. But in this case, she said that he seemed vaguely sinister. They keep walking and pretty soon he's right behind her. Then he falls into pace, just staying right behind her. Now she knows something is up. But she's almost home. She can see the top of her driveway coming up, and she leaves her lights on so it looks like someone's home when she walks in. She just needed to make it another 150 yards, then 100. All that time she said that she could feel him breathing on her neck. Maybe about 50 yards, it happens. A strong hand on her shoulder. Okay, bitch. Don't turn around. Hand over your purse, or I'll fucking cut ya. She stops for a second, and takes one big step forward, turns and shoots the guy in the neck with a .38 she kept in her purse. Hey, it's Texas. The guy spent the next 5 years in a prison hospital before he died to complications. My wife's grandmother passed away last year. Up to then, she felt a little guilty that she had, quote-unquote, pulled the trigger too soon. She also said, my late husband would have been embarrassed to know if I had missed. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you really like these type of stories, make sure to comment down in the comment section. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're new to this channel, make sure that you do as well. I've got a lot of content and a lot more coming, so just know that. And our community is doing nothing but growing. Make sure to check out the links in the description as well. My Twitter, Instagram, everything like that is in there, including my Gmail if you want to submit a story. Can I just say that last story, you go, Grandma. Hell yeah. I know that's not like my regular outro, but hell yeah. But stay safe, stay scary, and I'll see you in the next one. Already did the thing that was supposed to be at the end, like right in the middle, so I'm sorry. Here's another one.